Hello, everyone. Just just wait a minute to see if there's more people waiting to join before I get started. Okay, hopefully everyone can hear me well enough. If you can't, just write it in the chat, or if you have any issues, just put them in the chat there. So the presentation today on the John Broderick Residency, it should take maybe half an hour. There'll be room for questions at the end. Just pop them in the chat or the Q&A box, and we'll get to them when we finish covering these slides. So really, it's just going to be an overview what the residency is. It's quite a there's a few things that are quite specific to it. So we'll be looking at those and about what you might want to think about when you're putting your application together. So hopefully this is helpful. I think this is going to be recorded anyway, and we'll put it up on our channels and share with the Arts Council as well. So I will get started, and if anyone misses the start, you can catch up on that, or they'll be able to catch up on that. Okay. So the 2024 John Broderick Residency, I should say from the outset that this is quite it's a landmark year. It's the centenary of John Broderick's birth. He was born in 1924. So we will be planning, in addition to the residency, we'll be planning a number of events and initiatives to celebrate John Broderick and hopefully raise awareness for John Broderick and his works this year as well. So big year and lots to look forward to. So in this session, we're going to just cover the following. We're going to be looking at who can apply for the John Broderick residency, where I'll share a few details about John Broderick, looking at some of the residency details. There'll be advice on putting together your application. I'll have a timeline overview, and we'll go into some of the selection criteria. And then I've just gone through and pulled up some links that I think might be useful to anyone who's applying for the residency, just where to look if you're trying to figure out what your proposal might look like, or what a proposal for this sort of thing would look like. Okay, so just a nice quote there from Martin Dyer, who is one of our former John Broderick residents. So he says, the John Broderick Residency is a doorway into a beautiful county and into an uncannily vibrant artistic community. The presiding spirit, John Broderick himself, is a great and nourishing subject. And Athlone's superb Aidan Heavey Library is a beautiful, hospitable setting in which to explore it. So as you might have seen in the call out, a lot of the residency will take place in and around the Aidan Heavey Library. There's a kind of a wealth of resources there, some of John Broderick's writings, manuscripts, and things that that might be helpful and interesting to you if you are selected. Okay, so who can apply? The John Broderick Residency is open to professional writers of all genres, so it is an opportunity for writers who would be at that professional level. There will be a further emerging writer bursary later in the year, worth, I think that's valued at about £7,000. So this is for professional writers, and it is a 16,500. It's valued at €16,500. So writers applying must demonstrate an ability to mentor emerging writers, young people, and those interested in developing their writing skills. So if you have any experience running workshops or public events, any public engagement work, it's good to think about that now as you start to put your applications together. And then the last thing that we ask is for applicants to have a good knowledge of John Broderick's works. You know, there'll be time for you to kind of increase your awareness and knowledge of John Broderick through the residency, and even in that period between the selection and sorry, Suzanne has her hand up. One second. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second because I can't actually see if there's anything in the chat. Hi, Laura. We are just seeing the main slide. The slide deck's not moving. Okay, sorry. Thank you. I'm going to go back over. Okay, hopefully that is. I can't see the chat while I'm sharing my screen, so I'm just going to go out of it and see if you can see the slideshow now. So if I run through the slides like that, could you someone just write in the chat if you can see those moving? Okay, great. Thank you, Pauline. Okay, so I'll just run back over that very briefly. So we were talking about what the session will cover. So who can apply for the residency, some details about John Broderick, residency details, advice on putting together your application, the timeline, selection criteria, and some links to further resources. So I went over this quote by Martin Dyer. I will be sharing these slides with everyone who's attended as well, and the links that I mentioned earlier, I'll be sharing those in an email as well. So if you miss anything, we can go through these again, and you'll have access afterwards. So who can apply? As I mentioned, it's open to professional writers of all genres. And writers must demonstrate an ability to mentor emerging writers, young people, and those interested in developing their skills. So applicants should have a good knowledge of John Broderick's works. As I mentioned, there will be time for the selected writer to develop that awareness and knowledge of John Broderick through the year and from the time that they're selected. But at this point, going into your application, you should be doing a little bit of research and trying to find something about his work that maybe grabs you. Yeah. So a quick overview, John Broderick was born in Connacht Street, Athlone in 1924. He had 12 novels published, his best known being The Pilgrimage, and he had a bestseller, An Apology for Roses, which was published in 1973. It sold 30,000 copies. Alongside his career as a writer, John Broderick was an avid supporter of the visual arts and music. And so this residency was made possible because he bequeathed his estate to the Arts Council for the benefit and advancement of the arts in Athlone. So he was, as I mentioned there, a supporter of visual arts and music. So we are interested as well if writers have an idea of a way to bring in other disciplines into the residency. That's definitely something that we would welcome if it's of interest to you when you're putting together your proposal. So residency details. As I mentioned, 2024 is the centenary of John Broderick's birth. So there will be a number of events and initiatives planned to celebrate this. The residency will be located in Athlone on a part-time basis. So that looks like 10 weeks at 20 hours per week beginning in September. The residency is open to writers across Ireland, but it's like we do ask that writers situate themselves in Athlone. The occasional initiative can be run maybe online, but for the most part, we would ask that you try and spend as much of the residency in Athlone as possible. I think you just get a lot of value from that in terms of, as I said, being able to go through some of the materials that the library has on offer, kind of embedding yourself into that community there. So there is time. The residency allows time for both the writer's own work and interaction with the general public, community groups, schools, and people interested in writing. So a total of 16,500 is on offer with a further amount of up to 1,200 for accommodation. So there's an accommodation stipend there as well for maybe later engagements or times where the writer will need to stay in Athlone. Now, the successful applicant will be asked to stimulate greater awareness of the works of John Broderick, the art of creative writing, as well as encouraging more opportunities for people to engage with the work of writers. The residency will require a good knowledge of social media, direct contact making, and meaningful community engagement. So you will be on the ground in Athlone making those connections, meeting with schools, with writers groups in Athlone. That's sort of what the residency will look like. And then a bonus really is if writers have a good kind of awareness of social media and they're able to kind of share what they're doing and what they're working on with their audience. We also have a WordPress, a small WordPress blog that has been used in the past by the residents, and we would share articles and workshops on that as well. I'll be sharing more details about that later. So as I mentioned, a further 7,000 will be granted to an emerging writer, and that will be announced at a later date. The selected John Broderick resident for 2024 will likely have some involvement in this and in the selection of the emerging writer. Sorry, my voice is going a little bit, but we'll keep going. So some tips on applying. The first thing is to familiarize yourself with John Broderick and his works. There'll be a period ahead of the September start date, as I mentioned, in which you can continue to familiarize yourself with your work. So if you are selected, there'll be a little bit of time running into the residency where you can, be reading if you are kind of learning about John Broderick as we go. So we asked for a proposal document of up to 2 A4 pages. So it is good to start thinking now about what you hope to achieve over the 10-week residency period. Always good to give examples of previous workshops you may have done, events, public engagements. There will be an opportunity to bring a small number of guest artists at various points throughout the residency. So you might see that there's a good opportunity to bring in an artist, musician, another writer to work with a community group or school that you've been working with through the residency. And again, they can be working in any field. So just a quick overview of the timeline. The applications opened on the 20th of March and the deadline is 17th of April. That's at 5 p.m. on the 17th. So the selection panel will then meet 1 week after that on the 25th of April. There'll be an interview stage for writers who've been shortlisted, and that will take place between the 7th and 8th of May. Then the successful candidate will be contacted by mid-May. So as I said, you will be contacted by mid-May, and then we look for the residency to start in September. That would be to coincide with the school term. So there'll be that period of time for you to sort of get ready to go. So we will have an announcement event. So John Broderick was born on the 30th of July, so we are planning to make the announcement at a launch event on the 30th of July 2024. So we do ask that the selected writer make themselves available for that date. Okay, so selection criteria. So in terms of what we're looking for or how it's weighted, how the panel will be making their decision on who is selected for the John Broderick Residency, this is the breakdown. So the artistic merit of the proposal, that would be weighted about 20%. Familiarity with the work of John Broderick is at 10%. Again, as you go into the residency, you will be asked to really engage with his work. But in the application process, you just need to demonstrate an awareness, really, and maybe think about how that will inform your proposal. So quality of previous work, relevance and suitability of proposal, and track record in public engagement activities, and that includes online activities. So that's 20%, the relevance and suitability of proposal is 30%, quality of previous work is at 20%. So if you are applying, I would first and foremost advise that you look at our John Broderick Residency WordPress, because really there's quite a wealth of information there. It'll just give you a better idea of how this residency has looked in the past, and some of the successful activities that have taken place as part of it. So you'll see some workshops, you'll see there's a radio interview with Martin Dyers, one of the previous John Broderick residents, and that interview was recorded as he was going into the residency. So that just gives a good insight into what he was thinking about at that point. Of course, all of the residents have different ideas when they're going into their residencies, but if you are just doing your research as you go into your application, that is a really good place to start. So yeah, this residency, there's a link there to that interview. There's a nice Irish Times article about John Broderick, so I'd recommend reading that as well. Again, I'll send these links out to everyone after this session. And then workshopping the waking of really Ryan. So in addition to the kind of general workshops, writing workshops, and helping writers and students in Athlone to kind of develop their craft, there is also specific workshops looking at John Broderick's work. So that is the slideshow. So thank you all for bearing with my voice as it's going. But if you want to follow us on social media, you can find our information there. Before I go to the Q&A, I'm just going to pull up the application form so that we can go through that very quickly, and then we can get to any questions. So just one moment. Okay, so this is the actual application form. It's an online application form. You can find that on our website and the call out details. So this is what we asked for. We asked for your name, email, phone number, obviously your contact details. Now we asked for your proposal. You can drop that in as a file. We accept Word documents, PDFs, and it should be max 2 pages. So that's the kind of space that you're looking in. Your CV as well. I think, as concise as you can be with your CV is always a bonus. I would think about it as being maybe max 2 pages as well, if you can get it down to that, 2 to 3 pages at the most. We ask for a description and examples of previous public engagement work. So if you have done workshops and things that and all of your experiences that you think might inform your time, if you're selected as a John Broderick resident, you can write that into this text box here. And here we said there's two options here. You can either provide up to 3 links to recent works if you've published online, um, or you can upload up to 3 samples of your recent work. So you don't have to fill those both in. You can do one or the other. Now we say in the application details that if you have additional access costs, related to disability, then we can consider those if you just put a cost breakdown in this text box. So again, not everyone will need to fill out that section, but if that's applicable to you, you can put in an access cost breakdown there. Okay. Okay, so that is it. Just a quick overview. As I said, there is time now for questions if anyone has any questions. I'll wait a couple of minutes there to see if there are any other questions coming in. If not, we can wrap up maybe in the next few minutes. As I said, it's a quick enough overview. I am available. I put my details in the slideshow and I will be sending out that slideshow. So any questions between now and the 17th of April, I'm more than happy to chat with you about them. So if you do want to email me, do feel free. That's no problem. Right. Okay, I don't think there are many questions there. So we will wrap it up. And as I said, I will share all of that information with you um, in the next 20 minutes. So uh, I will email that out. That's just one more. Great. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.